Imagine this. You're driving to work one morning and you come upon some road construction. You see a sign that has the word detour on it. You follow those signs that direct you to your office, but it ends up taking longer to get there due to the side streets and stoplights that you're not used to. Finally, you arrive and you think of how much of an inconvenience that was. Well, this scene is kind of like how life is. We can have a plan for our life, but there may be detours along the way. Now, that's another D word I want to introduce to you today, detour. It's a lot like disruption. They're interchangeable. I wish I would have known this before I thought my life was at a dead end. Instead of seeing it as a detour or disruption, I saw it as a stop in my path. But little did I know, it was just my detour or disruption, and that I was always going to make it to my destination. See, as a 19-year-old, I know everything, right? No. But I do like to think that I'm a very good planner. I've always made plans for everything. My entire life, I planned my birthday parties, my outfits for the week, my menus for the week, everything. I tried to come up with every possible scenario when it comes to making any sort of plan for my life. That includes when 12-year-old, 180-pound Zayda Penner thought, let's lose weight. Now, we all know how important our appearance is when we're in our teens. And we also know how nice and supportive and everything everyone is around us whenever we're that age. Well, according to Common Sense Media, approximately 51% of teens feel a pressure to change their appearance. The girls my age were skinny. They started getting boyfriends and gaining social status when I wasn't. So with this pressure to be small, to be wanted, I made a plan to lose weight. I went from 180 pounds to 114 pounds in just a few months. I started dieting and counting calories and working out, and I saw a difference. But I didn't see the signs ahead telling me that I had to slow down, that there was something coming for me. But by the time I saw the detour sign, it was too late to turn back. January 15th, 2020, my mom comes into my room with tears in her eyes. Now, my mom is one of the strongest people I know, so seeing her cry was odd. She came over, sat down on my bed, grabbed my hand, tears streaming down her cheeks, and my heart dropped. She spoke the words that she was trying to gain the courage to say. Zayda, I need you to pack a bag. I'm taking you to the Children's Hospital in Oklahoma City. I'm not sure how long you'll have to stay, but she kept talking, but all I could hear was the sound coming from my chest. A few hours later, we arrive at the hospital, and I'm placed in an exam room with doctors coming in and out, hooking me up to machines and poking me with needles. There was doctors asking me questions like what I had to eat that day, if I feared gaining weight, when my last bowel movement was, and if I was suicidal. I tried to protest, trying to get back on my route. But by the time the last doctor came into my exam room, I was too tired. I'd given up. The doctor asked my mom for a chat out in the hallway. A moment later, they come back, and the doctor pulls up a seat. My mom's face was blotchy from crying, and the doctor looks at me with a frown and says the words that changed my life forever. Zayda, you have something we call an eating disorder, anorexia nervosa, one of the deadliest out there. You are so underweight that your organs are starting to shut down. I told your mom that if she wouldn't have brought you in today, I wouldn't have given you another 2 weeks to live. You're also co-diagnosed with major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety, and obsessive compulsive disorder. It's going to be a long journey, but I'll be here with you every step of the way. Eating Disorder Hope states that 0.3% to 0.6% of adolescents will have anorexia nervosa. NBC News reported that between the years of 2018 to 2022, hospital visits for teens with anorexia increased by 129%. I was admitted that day. I weighed 87 pounds at the age of 13, with a heart rate of 32, and a body that was so close to death that if I were to get up too fast, I may never have seen daylight again. Anna D. states that anorexia nervosa has the highest mortality rate and the second highest crude mortality rate of any mental illness. I was a 13-year-old girl, days away from the afterlife. I was in the hospital for a month. I thought it was never going to end. I had doctors coming in and out, asking me questions, giving me medicine. I had to grow up a little faster than everyone else, too. I mean, my home was 3 hours away. I had to take care of myself and busy myself after every meal to forget that feeling of being full. I remember sometimes even thinking, restricting and rejecting everything that the doctors offered me. But I knew that if I was to do that, it wouldn't be my detour. It would be a stop. And at the time, I wasn't sure if I wanted that to be the case or not. Finally, the month ended and I was discharged to go home. I was planning on staying healthy, but I hated how my stomach looked after each meal, how bloated it was, and I wanted to make it flat. So I began to work out again, even though my doctor frowned upon it. I started sticking to my safe foods, even though my doctor and my nutritionist wanted me to venture out and challenge myself. Well, it's hard to shake the feeling of wanting to be small when that's what you've wanted your entire life. And then boom, it got dark. And that's when COVID hit. We were forced to stay home, and I was still restricting my eating and working out, but my depression was there with my eating disorder on my shoulder, telling me to change, to go back to my old habits because no one was watching. So I continued restricting and working out, but I also started to self-harm. I hated myself more and more every single day. And then, right after COVID, I was hospitalized again, this time for a month. I was back to being on my own with taking care of myself after meals. But while I was there, something in me changed. I wanted to help people. I had this desire to help people. Maybe see if that was my reason for being alive. So I did what I had to do to get out of there. And eventually, I was discharged. I started venturing out with my food, and I stopped working out. And life was great. I thought that maybe my hospitalizations were only going to be the biggest parts of my life, and that, life was going uphill from here. But boy, was I wrong. So I was discharged. I started an Instagram page to help others with their eating disorders. I was venturing out with food, showing my growth, holding myself accountable. Everything was good. And then I started noticing bald spots on my head. I had 3 of them. I thought that maybe it was because of my malnourishment and it was just going to grow back, that it was temporary. But when it kept falling out and not having anything to replace it, that's when I thought, don't tell me it's permanent. Well, I decided to shave it. And when it didn't grow back after I shaved it, that's when I realized that it was permanent. I got to add another diagnosis to my list, alopecia, brought on by the stress my body underwent when I was starving myself. I already felt worthless and unwanted at that time, but adding hair loss to it made me feel even more worthless and unwanted and different. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So I started shrinking myself again. I started restricting and working out again, trying to conform to this body type that I thought was perfect, that I could be accepted in. I didn't think I would ever get any better. Sophomore year, I joined the speech and debate team at my high school. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. I didn't have a drive for literally anything. And I remember my speech coach, he always pushed me, always believed in me, even when I didn't see a point in trying anything. Well, that year, he required us to do 3 different types of speeches. So I chose dramatic duet, standard oratory, and prose. Well, 2 of those pieces I had already picked out, but I was still needing a standard oratory. So I was reading through them and trying to find a piece, and I found one that was on eating disorders and body image. And I fell in love with it. I memorized it, performed it, and made it all the way to the stage at the state competition. And that's when I realized that I had to use my voice to make a difference, that I have a purpose to help others, to show them what I've been through, to be vulnerable, and to show that they are not alone in their walks. And that's when I started to really try. I started eating more, and I got more involved in school and in FCCLA and speech, and I shared my story. I started sharing my story in high school, and I've continued sharing it long after. See, today, I'm a psychology major on the pre-med track to help understand the brains and to help people walk through whatever they're struggling. I started a nonprofit organization as well. It's called Project Survived. It's to raise awareness for eating disorders and to show others that they may feel alone, but they're not alone. We've made several public appearances and have taken in several donations. See, I plan to expand, not only sharing my story, but sharing other people's stories anonymously to show that there's more people out there, that you're not alone. You have a voice. I'm also a board member of a chapter here in Oklahoma's American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. We put on an annual Out of the Darkness walk. We've had several in the past few years, and it's been a really, really good experience event with raising awareness for suicide. I wouldn't be where I am today if I wouldn't have been on the detours that I was. I was always going to make it to my destination. I have a purpose to share my story to help others. So I share my story with you today, to share my wins and my losses, with hopes that you look at your journey in a different light. Instead of seeing it as a stop, see it as a detour or disruption. Keep going. Find your purpose, find what you're desired to do. Maybe you're going through financial problems and you lost something that's valuable to you. Maybe you're going through a breakup or you lost a loved one. Maybe you're self-harming and don't know how to stop, or maybe your journey's looking a lot like mine, struggling to eat and to find a purpose in being in here. But I want to encourage you this: don't give up. Use your voice, find your desire, help people, share your story that's on your detour. And be thankful for the beautiful views and the different scenery along the way, because your road's just under construction. Thank you.